Okay, Patty, if you could tell us a bit about you and we'll get things started. Morning, Claudette.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I am so happy to see all of you coming out this morning. It's a lovely day. And I am Patti. I am a wellness advocate and essential oil educator with doTerra Essential Oils. And doTerra is the largest essential oil company in the world. One of the things that doTerra prides themselves on is their therapeutic approach to testing. So you are guaranteed to get a pure product and you don't have to question or be concerned about any types of contaminants or things like that in the oils. And that's extremely important. So that's a little bit about me.
Nice to see you, Pamela. You got your tech sorted.
I think so. Yeah, it's always a gamble here.
All right, we're ready for you to start as soon as you're ready there.
Perfect. I'm going to share my screen, get this presentation up. Thank you so much, Erin, for having me, and thank you for everyone for being here. I think this is such an important topic as we get close to the holidays, and with the holidays maybe looking a little bit different for lots of families this year. All right. So there's our little intro slide, Erin. I think you probably went through that already.
Well, I didn't. So Patty talked a bit, introduced herself. So again, we have a lot of vintage fitness clients on this webinar, which is great. Nice to see all of you. Vintage Fitness, our mission is really to energize positive and lasting change in older adults' lives. There's a team of 13 of us, and we do personal training both in home and mostly virtually in the last couple of months.
All right, excellent. So today's topic is, as you know, is stress management for seniors, for older adults. We are going to take a brief overview of the stress response system, so how stress happens in the body and how it affects the body. I think that when we talk about managing stress, it's important to understand the systems and understand the body a little bit. So I'll take us through a brief overview of that. And then we'll look at how stress actually affects the body, and then we'll talk about stress management. Diving right into our overview. So we have the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic is what we know and what we're taught as the fight or flight. So the brain, as I've got my little picture of the brain here, it sends signals to the whole body. It sends a cascade of hormonal releases to act. So that's if you need to jump out of the way of, the streetcar, or if, you need to run, you need to fight. And this, evolved from us being prey, back as in evolutioning times. So there is this perfectly designed system that releases all of these hormones that make our heart beat faster. It tightens up our muscles so that we're ready to act. It helps us breathe faster. It sends blood and oxygen and energy to our muscles. And the parasympathetic nervous system is its friend because it downregulates all of that. So once the danger is gone, the danger's finished. We know the parasympathetic nervous system, where we're taught as rest and digest. So it promotes energy storage, it promotes sleep, it promotes digestion. The digestion thing, there's a lot of, when the sympathetic nervous system is activated, a lot of our processes halt, digestion being one of them, just things that aren't a priority. So you don't want to be worried about digesting food when you have to really act and manage this stressful situation. So a lot of the processes halt. That's important to know. And that's, energy storage, libido, all kinds of things that your body's not concerned with. So we do have this perfectly designed system, and, stress is a natural part of life. That's not really the issue. I think the media, stress is so bad, de-stress, decompress. It's not so much the stress, it's the prolonged activation of our fight or flight system. So that's what we know as chronic stress. So a couple of things are happening. That sympathetic nervous system is being stimulated to a lesser degree. So it's not just the running away or getting out of the way. There's smaller things that are enacting that system in our bodies. And then the parasympathetic nervous system is having a hard time balancing things out. So we aren't doing the things that promote parasympathetic activity. So there's an imbalance, and that's what chronic stress means. It just means that the fight or flight system is engaged for a very long time. And I think, I think you can start to see some of the issues with that when we spoke briefly about the faster heart rate, the faster breathing, tense muscles, high blood pressure, because your blood pressure rises so that your body can get, all the nutrients and oxygen to your muscles. So if that's elevated for long periods of time, you can start to see how that becomes a problem. Tight muscles for a long time, fast heart rate for a long time, high blood pressure, all those things. So that's why the chronic stress becomes the issue. It's an imbalance in the relationship of these two systems. This is a quick infographic that I'll run through, and it says how stress affects the body, but I'd love to just shove in how chronic stress affects the body, because these sort of negative things and problems that can happen in the body are due to that prolonged elevation of that system, not just regular stress. Stress, again, it is a natural part of life. It's just that we're stressed for too long. So with the brain, because they're flooding out these hormones, and the brain's very active trying to get these neurotransmitters, which are messengers, out to the body to handle this stress, it becomes difficult to concentrate. This also promotes anxiety in the brain. The parts of the brain that are dealing with the stress hormones are contributing to anxiety increasing in the body as well. Depression is another one, and irritability, mood, and mind fog. So sort of that foggy feeling that, it gets kind of tough to concentrate. We spoke about the cardiovascular stuff, higher cholesterol, high blood pressure, and then that increases the risk of heart attack and stroke. When the blood pressure is high for long amounts of time, the heart rate's faster, the breathing's faster. So you're at risk there. And joints and muscles. So that's kind of where I live. That's where a lot of trainers live. And this is what led me to explore stress more. I was seeing stress becoming such a huge, having such a huge impact on the bodies that I was working with my clients. So when the muscles are tense for long periods of time and they're pulling so tightly on the joints, that's going to lead to those aches and pains and muscle tightness. So we have all these mechanisms to release, like stretching and massage and things like that. But oftentimes the root of the problem is this stress response system. Very important for us now, the immune system. We're hearing lots about that, and in the middle of our pandemic, and the prolonged activation of the fight or flight system really taxes the immune system. It draws attention away from the regular function of the immune system, making it easier to become ill and to and to contract viruses and things like that. And then it takes longer to recover. The skin and
Pamela, I'll share results of the poll so you can see where our participants that are on the call feel their stress.
The fatigue, I think that, as I hope that kind of as we're discussing the physical implications of this, that fatigue would be the number one thing. Like, you're just exhausted, the brain, the body, and everything. So that makes, perfect sense. And skin getting duller, hair loss is a huge problem with stress. It really affects the thyroid and the adrenal glands. So we see that often. And then the gut is something that we want to talk about, because we briefly talked about digestion not being a priority when that fight or flight system is active. So that's going to cause poor nutrient absorption. You're not going to be as able to absorb the nutrients that you're eating. And this can lead to, unsettling, like diarrhea, constipation, indigestion, and bloating, and pain and discomfort. And that gut brain relationship that we're seeing, more and more information on as we research that there is this really important connection between the brain and the gut. So these, stress things are having this whole collective effect. And then, the reproductive system, because when the fight or flight system is active, those sex hormones become less of a priority. And, whether that's not necessarily reproductive function, but those sex hormones like progesterone, testosterone, estrogen, when those become imbalanced, that causes some issues as well too. So there's all the problems that stress can create. And that is just, to give you an idea of how important it is to manage those, manage stress, and how, it really becomes this thing that we have to start paying attention to. So I think it's important to know what's different about coping with stress as a senior, as an older adult. The cells are aging. Like, we've talked a lot about the physical implications of that fight or flight system. And as we age, the cells are getting older. Heart fitness and lung capacity, they do start to decline, especially if you're sedentary. If you're more active, you're going to have, increased cardiovascular capability and better heart function. But as we get older, the stress response does tax that even more so. So all of the things, that go with aging, they make it, or keeps it harder, or makes it harder to adequately accommodate the body's natural stress response system, just because it's so physically taxing to be under chronic stress. If you have any chronic diseases like autoimmune or anything like that, it's already taxing the body. So the stress management becomes, even more important. It's harder to bounce back from the toll that the stress takes on the body. And, differences mentally. So, normally when we're stressed, our brains get flooded with these stress hormones. The midbrain starts to take over, and the front of the brain, and that controls concentration, attention, and decision making. So all of that doesn't work as well when we're under stress, and when the brain is so focused on releasing those stress hormones. So, that can contribute to short-term memory problems that are totally unrelated to, age-related memory loss or dementia or anything like that. So your brain is taxed with this stress response system, so it can be harder to concentrate, harder to remember things. And oftentimes, older adults will get diagnosed with, some dementia and things like that, or some memory loss, and it can sometimes be attributed to stress. So that's something to consider as well. And generally speaking, and I say that intentionally, generally, older adults do have a tougher time sleeping. Anyways, as we age, that becomes a little more challenging to get a full night's rest and the restorative sleep that we need to function. And the stress response system takes a huge toll on that as well. It's very hard to sleep under stress anyways. So it's sort of like a double problem there. And we also have, mentally, emotionally, there's some changes in stress, in triggers, in the things that cause stress as we start to age. While in younger years, it may have been crying kids, or, your work life. Oftentimes older adults are dealing with a lot more loss. So family members passing away, friends passing away, that becomes a huge and different stress that we deal with as we get older. Changing family dynamics, children leaving, or, things like that, just different variations of loss. And sometimes the loss of physical abilities becomes really stressful also. So we just have all of these different triggers as we age. And what I've noticed with in my work with clients is a lot of my seniors are still working. Like, we are extending the time that we're spending in the workforce and things like that, because we're healthier as we age. And I find that my clients are sort of straddling both these work-life balance things, as well as losing people, as well as, some loss in physical abilities. So there's sort of like a lot more stress, or the potential for more stress and different stresses in the body. And then we move on to the management. So what you can do, the best option, and why I started exploring stress management, was you focus on activating the relaxation response. We can't control the stresses in our lives. They're always going to be there. And it's challenging to mitigate the stress response, that the sympathetic nervous system. It's very challenging to mitigate how we respond to stresses. But one of the best options is turning that focus towards the parasympathetic activity. So learning to better down regulate and balance the fight or flight with the rest and digest. So the relaxation response is the one that helps lower the blood pressure. It's the one that brings the heart rate back down. It brings the breathing rate back down, and it helps with more regular oxygen consumption and the stress hormones. So we've got a lot of different techniques for that. Yoga and Tai Chi are big ones. What the correlation is that mostly the breathing. So yoga in its roots and in its tradition is a very mindful practice. Our Western world has sort of, made it into power yoga, hot yoga, and all this kind of stuff. But there are the roots of yoga that are very connected to mindfulness and to breathing. Tai Chi also explores movement with breath, and it's rooted in martial arts, and it is meant to Tai Chi and both Qigong have their roots in martial arts, and they were designed to help fighters, learn to control their nervous system so that they could better manage that fight or flight response when they were in combat. So it's beautiful flowing movements that are connected to breath. And anytime that you move and breathe and match those movements with breath, it has a very profound effect on the nervous system. So that's why those are often, offered as mindfulness practices, as opportunities to manage your stress response system. Meditation is just another kind of form of yoga and Tai Chi. I think there are many different forms of meditation. And we're seeing there's been so much studying done on meditation. And I got the opportunity to work in a meditation studio for a couple of years before COVID hit in Toronto. And it was one of the, most powerful offerings I had for my clients to just alleviate some stress, create some mindfulness around the stress that they were experiencing. And different facets of that. There's some guided imagery, that's like visualizations, and, a lot of deep breathing exercises, which is what we're going to go through today. Because again, the breath is one of the strongest connections that we have to our nervous system. Social connection is very big for stress management. And in an age where we're kind of forced to be a little bit more isolated than we're used to, taking those opportunities to virtually connect, showing up for things like this, and Vintage Fitness does our live things on Wednesday, and participating in virtual training, connecting to your families virtually, your friends. This is, huge when managing stress. I think, I even, as someone who's a little bit more introverted, I realized this through COVID, how important that is. So, I think, I wouldn't mind just knowing if anyone is familiar with meditation or Tai Chi or anything like that, or heard anything about it. Is anything coming up in the chat?
Maybe, just mention in the chat if you've done any meditation in the past or any Tai Chi. Just drop it into the chat.
Mm-hmm.
So Daryl's done some meditation, but not consistent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's something really to touch on as well too, is that those practices, they do need to be consistent. It's like exercise. You're training the muscles in the brain. So, it's almost better to do 2 minutes of, a little meditation or a little movement, or create some mindfulness. And, this type of thing, it can be prayer, it can be any sort of contemplative practice that you can just, just breathe for a moment.
And I wonder, Pamela, I'm just looking at the chat. It looks like some people talked about doing mindful meditation, not able to keep it up, done some meditation, some mindful classes, but it seems like consistency and being able to keep up a consistent practice is maybe something that the group could use some tips around.
Yeah, I think this is a huge struggle. And it's odd to me, and I struggle with the same thing, is that when we are feeling stressed, we tend to gravitate to the things that help us escape, whether that's, TV, or, having a drink, having some food, whatever it is that we use to sort of escape and forget about things. But the best way to combat that stress is just to allow yourself to, feel how you feel, and recognize that you're feeling stressed, and create an awareness around that. So the tips for consistency for me is just to make it really simple. I think that anything that has to be a big production is going to fall off really quickly. So if it's 2 minutes, and we're gonna do a breath thing today, and it's, you know, just a couple of minutes, some counted breath. I think make it as simple as possible. You know, I think there's a lot of like, oh, you have to sit, you have to have this space, you have to not move, and there's all these like rules surrounding what meditation looks like or anything like that. And I think that making it as simple as possible and starting to create a habit around that is the best way, is the best tip that I have. It's just kind of one of those things, sort of set your time every day, create a habit. I'm first thing in the morning, I barely even get out of bed, and I'll just kind of sit up and take a few breaths and try to just kind of ground and center myself, and then go about the rest of the day. Sometimes I can fit in an evening thing. There is so much available, you know, online as well, which is really helpful. There's apps that help with this, and we can always help you with that. Like if there's questions later on, I can always help people, you know, individually with stuff like that. And I'm always available for vintage fitness people as well too. And maybe, you know, Erin, maybe we'll explore that a little bit on the page, you know, go through some little daily meditations, and hopefully that will help. Yeah. But I will, right before we turn it over to Patti, I will take us through just a very simple guided breath meditation. You don't have to think about anything. You don't have to clear your head. You just have to focus on your breath. And that gives the mind an opportunity to go somewhere, so that you're not just, you know, sitting in silence. So I will get everyone just to pull in a more full breath through the nose. And then let that breath out a little bit slower than you normally would. And you can start to close the eyes. The reason that we often close the eyes in meditation and reflections is just to sort of block out the external. You'll always hear things, you'll always see light, and that's fine. But just to give you a chance to turn inward, and you're going to invite in that fuller inhale. And let the exhale be nice and slow. Together again, we'll pull that inhale in. And exhale slowly. And this next breath that comes in, you're going to intend to breathe down. So think about feeling your belly expand a little bit on this breath. And again, with those nice slow exhales. Just keep breathing and feeling each breath. Your inhales are an opportunity to gently send oxygen to all the cells of your body, creating a little bit of space. And your exhales are your chance to release. So just thinking of those exhales, letting go, maybe starting to just see what your brain is thinking about. The idea with meditation isn't to stop thinking or clear your head out. It's to become the observer, just to take a step back and watch that racing mind or any racing thoughts, and give yourself an opportunity to slow down. And you can begin to let your breath take its own natural pace. It's a little less control. You don't have to pull in so hard, but just an awareness of the inhales and the exhales. And as you're breathing, just take a little bit of inventory on how your body feels. Let's look at the muscles in the face first. We often hold tension right between the eyebrows, where we furrow and show our concern. So let's start to open that space up, relaxing the forehead, relaxing the eyebrows. And let's relax the jaw next. We often hold a lot of tension in the jaw. And just continue to breathe and be aware of those inhales and exhales. Just letting yourself be still for another moment or two, feeling your breath, relaxing your face. Taking these moments to invite in a little bit of peace and calm. And then just before we open our eyes and come back, just invite you to take any small movements. Maybe it's a few rolls of the shoulders, maybe it's a few, just light movements of the neck and the fingers and toes, just with eyes closed so you get a sense of any moving from the inside. And then when you're ready, just gently open the eyes. Give yourself a little smile, maybe. Invite in a little bit of positivity. Take one nice full last breath. And hopefully that gives you a chance to just kind of see how the breath can offer in a bit of peace and calm, even with just a few moments. And I think from there, I will turn it over to Patti, who I know we introduced at the beginning. So we'll leave it to you, Patti, maybe to talk about how the oils and plant medicine help with our stress management.
Absolutely. That was so good, Pam. I am certainly feeling very relaxed. Oh, so I want to talk to you a little bit today about essential oils, and they are at a very high level volatile aromatic compounds that are either steam distilled from plant material or they are expressed through cold pressing, and that would be with more or less it's fruits, so orange, lemon, any of those types of fruits that have a thick skin, and the actual little cells that contain the oils are in the skin itself. So what I find these days is that, or what I have typically found, is that when we get an ache, a pain, a sniffle, things like this, we are starting to feel unwell. Our natural response has been to call the doctor and get in there to address an ailment that you're feeling. More and more, people are turning to natural therapeutic options like the use of essential oils. So here's how plant medicine works, and this would be referred to as aromatherapy. When the oils are diffused into the air, the aromatic molecules are inhaled, and they interact with the body's olfactory nerves, which are in the limbic system, which is a part of the brain. The limbic system controls things like heart rate, blood pressure, breathing, stress, and emotions. They have a powerful effect, much like the effect that of the smelling fresh baked cookies and having that remind you of your grandmother. Here's another example of that. So when you go to the dentist, let's say, and if you're nervous like me in the dental chair, I always ask them for some gas just to try and calm me down. So if you think about it, they put the mask on, they open the gas and start mixing it with a blend of oxygen, and you start breathing that in. And what happens is the nerves are sending the signals to your brain to tell your body to calm down. And it's the very same thing with plant matter. So plants have a chemical profile, much like our own bodies. And the chemical constituents in plants can vary greatly, and some can be very similar from plant to plant. And those would be things like antiviral, antibacterial, anti-inflammatory, antiseptic, antihistamine, antidepressant, and others like decongestant, calming, grounding, and analgesic. So you can see that there is a broad spectrum of uses for different types of oils. What we're finding these days is that younger generations are relating more to natural therapies and wellness. And a huge part of that wellness foundation is physical movement. So doing your workouts with Vintage Fitness. The other thing that is foundational is nutrition. If you're not feeding your body the right things, then it's just not going to be able to function as well as you would like. And you'll end up having some ailments. They can be as simple as gas and bloating. And there are all sorts of things that are in plant medicine that can relieve that. So it's much better than, turning to a prescription medication. So we're finding that the younger folks are looking at things like natural therapies and collaborative medicine. That is a big term now. You'll hear of people as functional medicine practitioners. And so those are people that will look from a natural perspective, but also with respect of traditional medicine. So to give you an example of how doTerra is working with hospitals, for example, is there are 175 hospitals in the US that are using doTerra essential oils in the work environment, in the patient environment. And they include hospitals like Duke, John Hopkins, Vanderbilt, and other hospitals like Vanderbilt, Salt Lake Behavioral Health Hospital, and St. Elizabeth Cancer Center. So they are going to be using them, for example, for mood boosting, for stress relief, for pain management, and many, many more. So they have done the research themselves independently and have seen the amazing effects that these oils are having on their staff and patients. So I want to give you a couple of examples of how this would be applied in a practice, for example. So there is a orthopedic surgeon who uses essential oils for what he calls comfort care. So he would use them pre-operatively and post-operatively. And he'll use oils like ginger, cardamom, wintergreen. He'll use calming oils like lavender, vetiver, frankincense, and they're to help the patients try to manage anxiety around the sorry, I'm having a brain cramp, the procedure that they are going to be having done. And then post-operatively, you can use oils that have some therapeutic benefits. So cooling, warming, just comforting the nerves. And that's where the wintergreen would come in, and cardamom and things like that.
Patti, I just have a question come up on chat.
Yes.
Marilyn was wondering, how do we use essential oils in a diffuser, mixed with water, another way?
Yeah, you can use them 3 ways, actually, doTerra oils. Primarily, they can be diffused, so you can have an actual diffuser. So you add water to the diffuser, and the electrostatic plate in the bottom will vibrate, and therefore the molecules will be released into the air, and you will breathe them in. And that's the aromatherapy example. You can use them topically on your skin. So lavender is a great example for this. And it's a very misunderstood oil because people automatically think, oh, lavender, calming, and it's great for calming, but it's also great for insect bites, for burns, for irritated skin, things like that. You can also put a couple of drops in your hand, as simple as that, and just rub your hands together, cup it over your nose and mouth. And you have to be sure that you are keeping your hands and the oils away from inside your nose, your eyes, because they're very potent and they will cause an irritation. So just make sure that you're being cautious. Just cup over the nose. Take some deep breaths. Great if you're using a respiratory blend to open up your airways. That's wonderful at this time of year. And also for oils that are, again, for clearing microbes, antiviral, antibacterial, we have a blend called On Guard. And that oil is 99.9% antiviral, antibacterial. So it's great to use in many applications. So you can actually take it internally, and you can take it internally because of the degree of testing that doTerra does on their oils, and also the way that they source. Unlike other providers of essential oils, you will find that they will have corporate farms, or they will be buying oils from a distiller. And when you don't own, let's say, the whole supply chain, so doTerra works directly with the farmers, teaches them how to grow. This in response then gives them a way to earn a living in some very impoverished areas of the world. And they also pay very fairly. So we're raising people up out of poverty. And that's very important, because when everyone along the supply chain is as invested in your health and the product that you are receiving or purchasing, it goes a long way for being very confident that you are getting a therapeutic grade, pure, potent oil. So
can I just ask you another question? So something else has been come up around dosage. So is there a specific dose that needs to be inhaled to be effective? And can you also talk about oils that rub on the skin?
Okay. What I would do if I was using a diffuser, because the oils are very potent, you would use 3 to 4 drops of a doTerra oil. Some other oils, they will tell you to use 10 to 15 drops, but 3 to 4 drops is quite adequate to be able to diffuse in the air and have a good response. When you're using them topically, I always like to encourage people to dilute their oils with something called fractionated coconut oil. And what fractionation does in the process is, if you look at the common coconut oil that you would get, it's hard in a container. This oil, because the long chain fatty acids have been removed in a process, this never returns to solid, it remains liquid. So in that case, that allows you to make your own roller bottles for things like eczema, for things like respiratory issues. And what I typically do is this is a 10 ml bottle. And I do have a dilution chart, because the oils are safe for babies right up to the elderly. And so we would have different volumes of oils that we would use in conjunction with the volume of fractionated coconut oil or jojoba oil. Jojoba oil is actually a really great oil because it mimics the oils that we produce in our bodies naturally. The reason that most people use coconut oil is because it's less expensive than jojoba, but they're equally good. And so in a bottle like this, I would only put 20 drops of oil in. And with a smaller roller, so this is a 10 ml, this is a 5 ml. And I use a lot of oils emotionally for spiritual encouragement or emotional encouragement. And this little one I made up, it's called Clear the Clutter. So it helps me to get in a zone and stay focused. This I would put 10 drops in, so half of the volume. Now, of course, with a baby, I mean, usually the dilution is 1 to 10. So for 1 drop of oil, you'd put 10 drops of fractionated coconut oil. And I've used oils like that to help patients with who have babies with colic and things like that. So, you know, these oils can be used for any type of topical application. Again, I said eczema, but you could have a burn roller. You could have, my husband has a bit of athlete's foot, so I always make up a roller for him, and he finds it very helpful. So, yeah.
Patti,
And
I'm just gonna share results. I did ask people if they're currently using the oils. It looks like
okay.
most people aren't. So maybe you could just give a few tips if someone's a total beginner, never bought an oil, and just wants to try.
Yes.
Where do they start?
Okay. I love this question. This is great. And I'm not surprised that a lot of people have not been using essential oils. Another little point I want to add in is I do teach classes. The information is on the screen. If you're interested, I teach on Tuesday nights at 7:30. It's a free class, and it's an introduction to essential oils. So that would be something interesting for you. But what I like to do is I like to understand the types of ailments that people are dealing with. Is it a digestive ailment? Is it a skin condition? Is it stress? And I like to have a discussion. And I also like to sample people, because I don't believe that you can totally appreciate the power of plant medicine until you've actually tried it yourself. So that's how my process works. I encourage people to speak with me, and we figure something out like that. And I'll pop something in the mail. So there's that. Now, one other thing I wanted to mention, because this is very tied in with stress management, and this is a very difficult time of year. A lot of people are feeling very isolated. A lot of people, even people, well, I know this group is 50 plus. My husband's a professor, and I know that he is feelings a bit of grief, which is part of a stress reaction, because he's not able to be face to face with his students. So he uses essential oils in a diffuser in his office space to help uplift, and it helps to overcome that. So another Salt Lake Behavioral Health Hospital in Utah treats PTSD and trauma, and has trauma programs. And they work a lot with the military, who you can imagine have severe anxiety, depression, flashbacks, things like that. And they're using things like citrus oils in the morning to help break any thoughts that they may have in from their subconscious sleeping process. And those citrus oils are very, very uplifting because of the content of linalool, which is a chemical property in those oils. And they are wonderful for doing some mind switching, some mind altering. And they've had great success with that. So what they're trying to do, and what I find more and more people that I meet are wanting to use natural solutions first. There's always going to be a place for allopathic or traditional medicine, but there is a great place for having your medicine cabinet full of essential oils at your fingertips. So if you are having a stomach upset, if you have headaches or migraines, if you have other ailments that you could treat at home, probably very effectively without having to go to a pharmaceutical, more people are wanting to remove toxins from their body, and they're finding that great. So a couple of oils that are really great with treating stress would be oils like my lavender here. Love lavender. And it's as I said, it's a very unknown oil. So I do have a Facebook group. If you people are on Facebook and would like to learn more, I post all sorts of you know, a bit of chemistry, a bit of general usage, some informational type stuff in my Facebook group, Oils and Wellness, and talk a lot about the uses and benefits of oils, and a lot of the oils that you may not have thought of or know about. Another great oil is frankincense. Frankincense is great. It affects every single body system. It is an oil that hits your cells and is very good for cell support. It's also really calming. And I know a lot of people within my sisterhood in doTerra who use frankincense a lot when they are feeling a little overwhelmed for whatever reason. Roman chamomile, I'm sure you've heard of, very good calming oil, great for the skin. And there's another oil called vetiver. So if you have troubles falling asleep, an oil like vetiver, which comes from the root of a grass in Haiti, it's a wonderful oil for calming as well. And as you can see, if you look at my shelves, you can see the variety of different oils that there are. And as I mentioned, some oils, because they are chemically based and our chemistry is not the same, what might work for someone might not work for someone else. And it's kind of a trial and error thing. I mean, that even happens when you have a prescription, for heaven's sakes, right? You may have a prescription given and it's just not working. So you go back to the doctor and say, hey, this isn't working, I need something else. Same goes for plant medicine. So that, Erin, is what I was prepared to talk about today. I hope that was helpful.
Yes, absolutely. It was really super helpful. I just popped in the chat your Facebook group, and I will put in. Do you have a website as well?
I
Patti,
don't have a website.
Okay.
No.
So Facebook, and then I'll just put, because if someone was asking for your information, they were having a hard time reading it on the slide. So I'll pop in Patti's email address, and then
Yes,
if you
and my phone number if they want to text.
Okay. I will put in the phone number just in case you're not seeing it that well. So I really hope you guys enjoyed the session. I want to thank Pamela and Patti very much for coming and presenting. I think for me, it's always about the impact of doing a short breathing exercise like that. It takes 2 minutes and the impact of that. So just realizing the benefits of it and kind of forcing a routine of it. I would love to explore in the new year having Pamela do some Wednesday time slots where we maybe get some essential oils and do some breathing exercises together. I think that would be really good, especially in January. So
yeah, just a lot of people, Erin, I just saw, I was reading through the chat. I saw a lot of people like wanting to explore more deeper, fuller breathing. And yeah, like I'd be willing to do that even before, like I'm around as the holidays go, even if we just start doing that, you know, because it's a tough time, the holidays, I find, and it's kind of in between Christmas settling. So I'm around if you want to talk about putting some stuff on the page or in our Facebook group, like just for our, you know, for our members. And I'd love to explore that. Like sooner, just because I was reading through the comments and there was 4 or 5 that like, I want to learn how to breathe. And I really want to offer that, you know, as often, you know, or as soon as I can.
Okay. Well, if we do something before the holidays, I'll definitely let all of you know. But I hope you have a wonderful holiday. And if we don't see you before, we will see you in the new year. Thanks again. We'll talk to you soon.